Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, February 25th, 2024. Coming to you live from Florida Media in Rockville Center. Got another spectacular show coming up for you tonight. Colby Cohen of ESPN and co-host of Morning Cup of Hockey will be joining us to talk some Islanders, NHL, all that good stuff. Great show coming up. My name is Sean Cuthbert. With me, as always, is Mr. Stefen Rosner. Stefen, how do you do?
I am jealous of your haircut right now because I thought for the last couple of days that I need a haircut, and I looked at the time to get up, and I had stuff to do. I said, I can't get it today. Now that you have one, I'm getting one tomorrow morning as soon as they open.
I'm happy to lead the charge in that regard, Stefen.
Changing lives. Yeah. I just want to go like
one
this.
One day at a time. Fresh cut.
Yeah,
fresh cut. All right, folks, so thanks for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. Before we dive in, I want to tell you all about our wonderful sponsors, starting with Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington and 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip. Check out the menu and order ahead at BlueLineDeli.com. Also happy to be sponsored by Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug your game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Also proud to be sponsored by Razor and Kniff Attorneys at Law, ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com, RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. And also happy to be sponsored by A1 VIP Entertainment, your one-stop entertainment concierge for sports, concerts, Broadway, and more. One call does it all at 516-787-0048. And for those of you hanging out with us live in the chat, hit us up for Questions Brewing later in the show. Say Questions Brewing in your chat, and then follow up with your question, and we will try to get to it later. So with all the pleasantries out of the way, Stefen Rosner, a 1-2 week for the New York Islanders, not very good. So let's start there. What did you think of the week, and then we'll dive into the games.
Yeah, a team that needs to be a little more urgent with what the standings are looking like. A couple of games where you think, again, urgency to me and effort are two different things. Bearing down. That's the one thing that we'll get to in a lot about.
A lot of buzzwords here.
What Waz said, keywords for SEO, Google. No, but Waz said, like, the last thing that's missing from the power play is just the bearing down, getting to the front, bearing down. I mean, you play teams that are, one, talk about Pittsburgh. You blow 2 leads in that game. You allow you allow Pettersson to be wide open on that first goal where, unfortunately, Scott Mayfield was wandering, I don't know, somewhere. It's like when your remote control dies in like the game.
Yes.
And it was just nowhere to be seen. And you blow 2 leads in that game. You go to overtime. You get the win. And you think, okay, after losing to the Rangers and everything that went wrong outside, monumental to get the win there. But again, it wasn't a great win.
Yeah, I mean, skin of their teeth, man. You know, it just looks like Lane Lambert hockey again. As far as the blowing leads go, I mean, they're doing it differently. Like, we're seeing the stats change. We've touched on this, how they're putting more shots on net. They have more possession, but they're still finding ways to blow leads. And I kind of went on a mini rant on Twitter not too long after the Ranger game, I think it was, you know, just saying how it's the same story, just kind of like with different makeup over it. You know what I mean? Like, it's still happening. And what that says to me is that this is more of a mental thing for this team. You know, where you could have thought maybe it's a systems thing, maybe it was Lane had them kind of retreating a little bit and just trying to fend for their lives. But, you know, we know that Patrick Waugh is encouraging, you know, going for the kill and trying to extend the lead and kind of just clamp down. And it's still not working, which tells me these guys are getting out there and they just have no confidence, you know, protecting leads. And you get this late into a season and the same thing keeps happening. I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And you talk about, you know, blowing leads, thing like that. They didn't have a lead the next game they played, losing 4-0 to St. Louis.
They figured out a different way to lose in that game.
We laugh about it, but it takes talent to allow 3 goals in 32 seconds. You know how hard that is to do?
Well, I don't know if you saw my tweet after it happened.
I probably saw it.
But I was on the telephone. I was at home.
No one calls the telephone anymore, Sean.
Right. So I was on my cellular device.
Mobile?
Yes, on my mobile. And I was half watching. I had it on, but I
saw this,
Yeah, so I have it on, and so I'm talking on a very important conversation. And so, you know, the goal happens, and I'm like, all right, St. Louis scored, whatever. And then, you know, I'm still talking, and I look up again. I'm like, oh, okay, replay the goal. Okay, fine. And then I look down again. I'm talking again. And I look up, and oh, okay, they're replaying it again. I guess it must have been a really nice goal or whatever. So I get off my phone call. I look up, and I'm like, 3-0. 3-0 St. Louis. I was like, you kidding me? Those are all individual goals? And they were 32 seconds. Yeah.
Quickest 3 goals in Blues history.
And
second fastest in NHL history by, I'm pretty sure someone had a hat trick with it. Someone, one of those names that, like the 30s or whatever. I can't remember the guy's name.
Okay.
But, yeah, pretty fast. And
it was the fastest 3 goals against in the Islanders history.
Oh, yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And we had talked
breaking records.
We had talked about the show on Monday is what do the Islanders have to do to solve Binnington? And I said you have to crash net early and make his life essentially hell and get him pissed off because he could either be pissed off and fight you or stop pucks. And I'll give them credit. They crashed net early and had 38 shots and goal. It was a pretty good road game outside of the 32 seconds, but they didn't really piss Binnington off, get into his crease, things like that. Got into a rhythm, and he was outstanding.
He was, and good on you. You did raise that as a key last week, and it ended up being a huge one. And the one thing I noticed was when the Islanders were crashing that, and sometimes this is just a luck thing, but it seemed like they were just too up on Binnington, where the rebounds were when they got the rebound, they had nowhere to put the puck, and he was right there, taking up the space. So they had nowhere, and they were just shoving it into his chest, into his pad, and they weren't getting any goals there. So should they have had the foresight to, step back a foot or two? Maybe. But either way, it didn't work out. Bennington played a great game, and that 32 seconds was just killer. And you had a timeout in there in between, and you just wonder, like, what is it now with this? Where you had rapid goals this entire week. Actually, you can go back to the Ranger game. You had a game within about a minute against Pittsburgh.
Yep.
You have the 32-second flop against St. Louis, and then you have...
All right, Pittsburgh is 2 goals in 56 seconds.
Right, and then you go to yesterday against Tampa, and you have the first goal. Then you have a goal you think the Islanders scored. That's taken back. But then a minute later, Tampa scored again to go up 2-0. So you have these bang-bang goals coming for the last, 3 or 4 games?
Yeah, we didn't touch on it, but Zizekas gets hurt against Pittsburgh. And we all think that's it. We'll get to that a little bit later. But you go to the game last night against Tampa, and Tampa's it's in a spot they haven't really been in a lot of years, where they aren't fighting for a wild card spot.
Right.
And I don't think it was the Islanders were off to a bad start. It just seemed like they were just dominated. I mean, their defensive zone coverage was non-existent. They looked like the tempo was on a power play. Again, they get the goal. You think, okay, they figured it out. It's 1-1. If that game stays tied, who knows? And then 2 goals in a minute 22 yesterday for Tampa. And then the third goal is one Sorokin. I mean, Point can never be let to take that shot from the slot there. That's one Sorokin when you're paying him to be an elite caliber goalie. He's got to stop for you there, and that does change the game because they come back and tie 6-on-4, 6-on-5 advantage. They get the 2 goals late. They can't come back, but
we've seen that too many times now with this team where they wait until it's desperation time when they're down a couple of goals and they make a valiant effort to try to come back. Sometimes they get a goal or two and sometimes they don't, but it's never enough. They haven't been that team really that's been able to come back, and reverse this effect where they're letting other teams come back and it's hurting them. And you just, you wonder if there's almost, to go broad here, like, is there kind of an exhaustion with this team? And I don't necessarily mean literally fatigue-wise, but, like, is this team just...
Shot?
Yeah, like, literally. Like, just because they can't get any of this stuff together where they know the urgency. They know that they need to put points on the board. They got Patrick Waugh preaching it every day, every night in all of his press conferences. They know how much they got to, how much ground they have to gain to get back into this race. And then you see these stinkers that they come. Like I thought they came out fine against St. Louis, obviously, until the 3 goals came. You mentioned yesterday against Tampa, and Tampa ran the floor with them a little bit more. And you can joke about the afternoon game curse, but it rears its head again. But you just wonder, why isn't this team, coming out just guns a-blazing, knowing that they need to get every point that they can get? Because even if they lose, that's one thing, but at least you can say to yourself, I went out there and I busted my ass. The goals didn't come. You run into Binnington, you run into another hot goalie, or the puck's hitting the post, or whatever it is, but you're seeing efforts here that just doesn't speak to the urgency that this team needs to have.
Yeah, and we had talked with Kyle Palmieri after the game about exactly that, and I forgot exactly what the question was, but do you think the urgency is where it needs to be consistently, things like that? And this is what he had to say.
We got to be smart, and we got to work hard, and we got to do it together. Can't just be one line or 4 or 5 guys. We all got to pull in the rope in the same direction, and we got to continue to get better at it. Whether it's urgency, I mean, like I said, it's not always about running around like a chicken with his head cut off. It's about being poised, making plays when they're there, winning our battles and competing, and I think that you could always be better at. So we'll continue to try and to strive for a better version of ourselves in that.
And good on Palmieri, too, is no one on the team is going to throw anybody under the bus. But the fact that at this point of the season, you have someone who's played really, again, Palmieri is one of those players that is tugging the rope in the right direction. I mean, he's one of the better forwards under Wah. And essentially what he's saying is that there are people that are essentially passengers on this car that they need more drivers. And we had talked about that a lot when Bo Horvat got here, when Wah arrived, the first practice. Horvat said, Wah's preaching that we all have to pull on the same rope. We have to work as a 5-man team. And you see the urgency being an issue. You're seeing mistakes here or there. And it's just, at this point in the season, that can't be happening when you have to win games. And I went to the Tampa locker room and the Islanders after the game. Talking to Braden Point, I said, how important was this for you guys, knowing whether you guys are on the standings? He goes, we knew how important these 2 points are. We were on a 3-game skid. We had to break the skid. Right. They gave it to us pretty good the last time we played them. We knew how important this was. And they played as if they needed the 2 points. And I'm not saying the Islanders didn't play well. Again, overall, you had 2 goals in a minute 22. You had a soft one. But again, how come the Islanders didn't come out with, maybe they had that mindset, but we didn't see that.
That's the issue. I'm sure they are all well aware, and they all have the goal in mind. But for some reason, in these games, they're coming out, and they just look like they're not ready. Again, St. Louis, I don't feel that way. They just had a 32-second implosion. I mean, we can try to
very good
dissect that later.
Very good road game.
Yeah, I thought they came out fine in that game. But, again, against Tampa Bay, you saw it early. And they took that first penalty, and I turned to my buddy, and I was like, a minute and 30 seconds from now, it's going to be 1-0 Tampa. Now, whether the timing was accurate, I was implying that they were going to be down a goal before that power play was over, and sure enough, they were. And, that's just how this has gone for them. And that's another thing, too. They just can't. They can't take penalties anymore. It's nearly a guarantee at this point. So
I know we have a second here. Going back to the Blues game, they weren't getting the goals, and so Wah swapped Barzal and Wahlstrom. Just to get a new look.
Sure.
And then yesterday in the third period, end of the second, early third there, you had Brock Nelson skating with Bo Horvat and Matthew Barzal. And we'll get to the line changes after you talk to Colby Cohen. But he makes those moves, and I asked after the game what the thought process was. Because you had done Wahlstrom, why Nelson? And he goes, we needed more speed. And that's the second time Waz said that when he's made a move. Engvall being on the top line, remember that? It was they needed speed. And I think everybody appreciates, on the team, they appreciate what Andersley can do and be that net front guy. But if that net front guy can't get there and be effective in front, you need speed. And again, we'll get to the lineups in a second because we're seeing something we haven't seen for this team going into Dallas tomorrow. But we'll get to that. And just the game against Tampa, again, is Tampa knew the importance. The Islanders couldn't match that. And now you're in a situation where you're now, 7 points back of a wild card spot?
I think it's 8 now.
Oh, 8, right, 8. So,
7 back of Philly, I think, for third, and I think they're 8 back.
Yep, and Detroit's playing tonight. Jake the Snake, Detroit score is what right now? 2-1 Chicago, which that would be crazy. Kane's first game back.
They're riding a 4-game winning streak right now.
2-1. So, I mean, that's a huge result. Every result's huge, and you got to see them go into Dallas, and they beat Dallas in Wah's first game. It was probably their worst game of that week under Wah.
Right.
And they finally get a win.
Feels like ages ago.
Yeah.
Well, we got a break for Colby.
Yep.
So, folks, I want to thank you so much for tuning in here at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Colby Cohen will be joining us. We'll see you in a minute.
Hear it. It's over. I can't believe they fell short again.
Yeah, but they played so well. They made it to the semifinals 2 years in a row.
The semifinals aren't the cup. God damn it. Heat was lightning.
They'll get another shot at it next year.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore, all right? They lost, okay? Let me just sit here and enjoy the one thing that makes me a little bit happy. This fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty, turkey-filled Blue Line Combo. I eat 3 every day to help keep me strong.
Hey, Donnie, can I have one of those?
Coming right up. Talk about a blast from the Blue Line.
Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Our goal is to make you a hero.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest, and Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook. Or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for On the Line, and joining us right now is Colby Cohen, former NHLer, also co-host of Morning Cup of Hockey, and of course of ESPN. Colby, thanks a lot for joining us. How you doing?
What's going on, guys? Sorry I'm a couple minutes late. Technical difficulties. Not my specialty, this kind of stuff. I need my handheld a lot for these types of things. So sorry for being a couple minutes late.
Oh, no worries. All good. You're here. That's all that matters. So listen, obviously an Islander-centric show here. So I just wanted to start general with you and just get your perspective on this team. Obviously, they make a recent coaching change. They bring in a huge name like Patrick Waugh. They're struggling a little bit under him. Obviously, time is getting short trying to get into the playoffs. What's your view on this team and whether or not maybe they have a shot to put something together and make it?
Yeah, so look, I'll be totally honest with you guys. I haven't watched a ton of Islanders hockey this year because it just hasn't been great. And to be honest, where I'm at, and I'm not trying to take shots by any means. The most dialed in I probably was after they hired Patrick Waugh, because I just thought that was such a brilliant move. I really did. Patrick Waugh came to Colorado shortly after I was there, and so I had a lot of crossover from guys who just really loved playing for him and like really just praised their time with him, and not because it was like a walk in the park or a country club, but just because he's such a straight shooter and he's such a legend, and I think his understanding of the game is so high level. So I watched a lot more Islanders like right after he gets hired. And I thought, wow, like this was probably the life that this team would need to have an opportunity to make a push. But, at the end of the day, like you need a roster. You really do. You need the players, you need the horses. And, I think the team has gotten a little bit stale. I think they've yes, they added Horvat last year. And, I still remember when Lou came out and said something something like, well, whatever we paid him too much and too many years. And such a typical comment for him to make. And honestly, I think this team is probably going to be stuck until they're ready to move on from him.
Wow. Colby, thanks so much for joining us. I wanted to ask you about a former Islander defenseman that you're pretty close with, and Dennis Soderberg, and just about your relationship with him and how important he was in terms of your development and just working with you.
Yeah, so I met Dennis 2010-11 season. When I got brought up to the big club down the stretch, and Dennis is not the most talkative guy there is, and I certainly usually have a lot to say about everything. So kind of like a little yin and yang, unlikely friendship, I guess you could call it. But it's funny. Like I remember being maybe my second year training camp, 21, 22-year-old guy, and we played a preseason game in Montreal. And I'm pretty sure we were D partners that night. If not, we just were, they were mixing and matching and whatever. And I had like a pretty rough turnover in that game. It didn't come back to bite me in the ass, and like they didn't score anything. And then I had a really good opportunity to score in that game, and I didn't score. So I was kind of like down on myself in the shower after the game, just kind of standing there off to the side. And he kind of pulled me aside, like told me to get my head up and basically gave me a little tough love. Don't feel sorry for yourself because nobody else will type of moment. I don't remember exactly what he said with his broken English. Dennis is famous for having broken English. Unless he knows you well and he's comfortable, then he speaks perfect English. But around everybody else, he's got that like broken German English accent of his. So don't let him fool you by any means. And then, after that, just became friends, and we live maybe a bike ride away from one another, 5 minutes on a bike down at the beach in the summer in a place called Margate. So for the last, I don't know, however many years, we just spent a lot of time together in the summer, and I've been fortunate to get to see his kids grow up, all of them. I love watching Breaker play hockey. I think it's so cool seeing a a little miniature kid in an Islanders jersey with Seidenberg and 4 on the back, or 44. I think he switched this year to 44. Breaker did, and so it's been a, like I said, a super unlikely relationship for people that know the both of us, but one that's really meaningful to me. And it's not just Dennis, it's his wife Becky and his kids and my wife now, and my daughter. Becky is so great to my daughter, who's super, super young, but always willing to watch her and change a diaper and this and that. So it's a great relationship that it's a lucky one. And I do love talking about hockey with Dennis and talking about players with Dennis, because he really he kind of reminds me of a GM. He's a really hard grader and evaluator, and he doesn't just go along, if everybody says this guy's good, he's not just going to say, yeah, he's good. No, he will tell you what he thinks of a player, why he thinks it. And like I said, he's a very stiff evaluator of players.
So Colby, that's great stuff, by the way. So you mentioned something earlier about the Islanders saying maybe the roster's gotten stale, and I kind of wanted to key in on that. So, if you put yourself in that situation as a player and you're part of that roster and you're a team that, you know where you sit in the standings, you have so many games left, and maybe there's not any help coming from the general manager, some trades from the outside, or any kind of change. I mean, how do you guys, what's the mindset when you're looking at each other, looking in the mirror and saying, look, we got a job to do. We got a heavy hill to climb. How do you guys manage that and do your best to overcome that hill?
Well, first off, you're a pro, and you have really no choice but to show up every day and do what you can. You make millions and millions of dollars. And most locker rooms have some levels of belief, and I'm sure the Islanders do have belief in their dressing room. From everything I know, Anders Lee, guys say he's a good captain, he's a good leader. Dennis has told me that before. So I honestly, that's more just shit talking for people in the media, outside noise, all that. I really do believe as a team, you have a job to show up, compete, battle, and try to make the playoffs. And I got to tell you, the uniqueness of this situation is Patrick Waugh is evaluating players to see who's going to be here and who's not going to be here. And if you think Patrick Waugh is not going to sit down and talk with Lou about those types of things, if Lou's still the general manager next year, obviously I have no idea about that. But I think there's probably not a lot of people in the hockey world that Lou Lamoriello is willing to give the highest levels of respect to. And I'm not saying he disrespects people by any means, but listen, Lou's been around longer than most people. And, you know how those types of people are in hockey. They know better, they know more. And some of them do know better and know more. But, Patrick Waugh is such a unique circumstance because, he's potentially the best there ever was at a position, as a teammate, as a fiery guy. I mean, he just checked every single box, and his record as a coach is phenomenal on top of it. So goalies spend a lot of time watching hockey from the crease. They really do. They see everything. So I bet you Patrick Waugh is going to have at least a voice in what this roster is going to look like moving forward. So I think players are playing for not just playoffs this year, but are they going to be around? Are they going to be a part of the future as they potentially retool this roster, make some moves potentially in the offseason? Who's it going to be? Is it going to be a big trade? Do they look to move a guy like Matt Barzal out, who really hasn't found the same success that he found as a rookie ever since? Maybe he hasn't been surrounded properly. I don't have the answer. I don't pretend like I do, but these are all really reasonable questions. And at the end of the day, though, you do have a job to show up and compete. And I think the Islanders will do that. I mean, without a doubt. This doesn't look like a team that's just going to mail it in and quit.
Yeah, and Colby, we just played a clip of Palmieri talking about how it can't just be 4 or 5 guys pulling the rope. Everyone has to pull the rope. In your locker rooms that you've been in, I guess, how tough is it? Like, do players have the closed-door meetings all the time, or are a couple of players going to go talk to one player and say, hey, we need more from you? Or like you said, you're a pro, that everyone just assumes you're giving it your all the time?
Well, I think closed-door players meetings are probably 80% bullshit. I really do. I think that's, again, like, that's for the media. It's for show sometimes. It's guys are all standing up talking, and I don't know. Like, I think those are pretty rare that they're that impactful, to be honest. At the end of the day, like, I think a lot of it has to do with just leading by example and having guys go out and manage the puck and finish their checks and stop on pucks and take hits to make plays. And I think that type of thing is way more infectious within your locker room than players' meetings. I really do. I think talk can be super cheap, especially nowadays. I think just really like, having a guy go out and whether they're dropping their gloves or whatever the case may be, or guys are, in practice competing harder against each other. Like, I don't know what the perfect answer is for this team, but Steph, I'm not somebody who's a huge believer in those players only types of meetings. I think what you do on the ice, practice and game, is how you get other guys into it. When a player sees Matt Barzal make a 200-foot back check or change in the offensive zone so he doesn't get caught out there too long, or block a big shot, or finish a check. I mean, not that I'm asking that guy to play in a physical role, because that doesn't make sense, but just those types of things I think are way more impactful.
That's what it's great that you brought that up, Colby, because I was going to ask you exactly that. If maybe you look back on your career and maybe you're in a similar situation with one of your teams in years past where, maybe your team's in a rut, maybe you guys are struggling. And is there anything that you can call back to say, hey, I remember so-and-so doing this or so-and-so saying this that, kind of helped give you a kick in the pants when maybe you needed it, or maybe the team needed it to maybe get over a challenging situation?
There were definitely, different moments probably that I got to witness during the 2011 Stanley Cup run. Now, granted, I was an extra player for that. I was a practice guy. I traveled with the team. I practiced. I got to be around it all. I got to be in the meetings after the games, the practice meetings, all that stuff. But I wasn't playing, right? So for me, it was just, bearing more witness types of things. But I think Zdeno Chara was probably as good as you could get at being that type of leader. And honestly, I just think back to the way Chara and Dennis Seidenberg played in the 2011 playoffs. And you rarely hear people talk about that when they talk about that cup run, because so much of it was about Tim Thomas and the power play was in the first round, didn't get a goal, and the comebacks. But just the way those two guys played. I mean, they took their game to such a high compete level that it brought everybody along, and it kicked everybody in the ass. And we were down 0-2 two different times in that playoffs, and guys like that made sure it wasn't necessarily what they said, it was what they did. It was first shifts of games. It was, hits they made and plays that they made and blocks that they had and stuff like that. So kind of just mirroring what I was saying. I mean, I definitely remember moments from the national championship year at BU that we had one really rough weekend against the University of Vermont that year, and we had only lost maybe 4 or 5 games that whole season. But I remember our coach put film on, and he put it on with the announcers, so we could actually hear what the announcers were saying about us in those games. And I'll tell you right now, that fired a lot of guys up, and
that's awesome.
Guys were pretty pissed about it. Guys took it personal. Guys took it to heart. And Jack Parker knew what he was doing. I mean, he was a wizard at that type of stuff. I mean, for me, nobody was better at knowing when you needed to be, dragged off the bench by your cage or given a hug to than Coach Parker. And I experienced the highs and the lows with him for sure. So, they're just different moments. And the other thing, like, times have changed. That's another thing. So, I'm not in the locker room anymore to see how these young guys are, but I do know just from talking to guys, like, things are a lot different now. I think, guys are a little more on their own page, and guys, there's a lot more individuality in the game these days. And I think just how you're able to piece all those individual personality styles together into that sort of team ecosystem is probably the difference between maybe a team like Tampa and the fact that they're finding their way into the playoffs and a team like the Islanders who just can't seem to string together, any level of consistency, because you can't tell me the Islanders don't have goaltending. They're one of the few teams in the NHL that do have goaltending. And even Sorokin on a B night is better than, a majority of the league. You can't tell me they don't have guys on the back end, because they do. They've got a guy who is in the conversation for the Norris, in Noah Dobson. And there are, other skilled players in that lineup. So I think speed is a big problem for them. I really do. To me, it's not the fastest lineup in a sport that's really fast. And they don't play that tight game anymore like they used to play under Barry Trotz, where, they would just lull you and lull you and lull you. But I think that's all part of the question and talking about the individuality of personalities and dragging guys in and getting guys going and getting players to sort of buy in. It really all kind of connects itself.
Colby, I know you said times have changed, but as someone who's played in the league, how much media training do you guys get?
Well, I appreciate you guys are super generous. I saw some of the social media stuff. I guess I did play in the league, but I probably have. I've broadcasted more games as an NHLer than I've played. That's never a good thing. But not a lot, to be honest. There isn't a ton of media training. I mean, I do remember, like, maybe during the playoffs, after every game, the PR staff would come in the room and they would basically, prep the team, and they would say, like, look, like, just because I remember there was a lot of drama with the Vancouver Canucks that year. So PR would come in and be like, we're not commenting on the biting incident, or we're not replying to what Roberto Luongo said, or whatever. And to be honest, like, I think if you go back and you look at the PR battle, we totally crushed them in the PR battle that year. And when I say we, I guess I use that term loosely. No reporters were talking to me, but it is true that we could use more personality in the game. And I mean, the Islanders are a great example of it. Like, they're not allowed to have any fun. They're not allowed to really do much of anything, to be honest. I mean, I want to get Noah Dobson to come on Morning Cup of Hockey. And I know it's a long shot because I just know how controlling the organization is. So, look no further than the Stadium Series game. The Islanders are the only team that show up in suits and ties. Like, I actually thought that was classless. Like, and I know it's not the players' fault. And I know a lot of Islanders fans actually got pissed at me on social media, and they were like, oh, like, we want to keep it classy. We don't want it to be like the NFL. And I'll tell you, I'm not promoting that at all. I think the NHL's dress code, I think dressing professionally, like, I happen to love all that stuff. Hi, buddy. My dog loves to make cameos when I'm doing stuff. That's Oliver. He's just, coming in to say hello to everyone. But I really did. Like, I thought that was super disappointing to see the Islanders not have the opportunity. I thought the Rangers show up and, you know what? They crushed it. They were wearing the FDNY, and that was like the coolest. I mean, such a great honor to the heroes of New York City, right? And then the Islanders aren't allowed to partake in that kind of stuff. And, listen, that's the one time a year where you have this opportunity to have a moment that is a grow the game clip that teams talk about, that fans that don't watch hockey talk about. And, here come the Islanders with their suits and their ties. So not the players' fault whatsoever. Right. We all know where that stuff comes from. And it just, to me, it lends more to the fact that, look, Lou has given a lot to the game of hockey. He's done a lot of great things, but it's time to pass the baton, because there are certain things where you're showing your inability to, go with the times. And I think a little bit of old school is great. I think Patrick Waugh is a perfect example of that, but I also think Patrick Waugh wouldn't still be coaching at high levels of hockey if he didn't learn how to grow and adapt and move on to the times.
I think that's fair, Colby. And just to tie into what you just brought up, the Islanders get a Stadium Series game here 10 years after the last one. Obviously, they're not really involved in a lot of these events, whether it's that, Winter Classics, drafts, or whatnot. But we did just find out that the All-Star game is going to be at UBS Arena 2026. And I just wanted to ask you, I suppose as a sort of outsider's point of view, what does that say about the image for the New York Islanders landing an All-Star game where, let's face it, for the last few decades here, they've kind of been an afterthought for the NHL?
Well, look, I think you got to give a lot of credit to Malkin and Ledecky for what they've done with that building, and I think that means a lot. I think UBS Arena, they built a state-of-the-art facility. I know it was a struggle. I know the whole Barclays Center thing they tried, it didn't work out. At the time, I thought, whoa, that could be really cool. And so I think you're kind of bringing this identity to that area of Long Island and the Islanders and what they are and what they represent. So, look, I think Gary Bettman, giving the All-Star game to the Islanders in UBS Arena, it's mostly a feather in the ownership group's hat. I don't know the deep history of ownership in the team. Obviously, I remember what happened back in the day with the guy who turned out to be a total fraud. I know that. I've seen that whole story and whatnot. And there was always so many running jokes about Gar Snow and the former owner and that, how he lasted and all these different things. But, look, I think it, like I said, it shows you that the Islanders made a commitment to Long Island. They put their money where their mouth is with the building. I think what they're doing with the whole outdoor rinks, I think what they're doing with their community hockey teams and the junior Islanders and having former players involved in that. I know Dennis is involved with the little kids. I know Aaron Ashram's involved with the little kids. I think that's all part of the reason why they're getting it. And listen, Long Island, it's not that far from it's in New York. It's not far from Manhattan. It's a major destination. Manhattan is obviously. Long Island would be the destination in the summertime. But it definitely, like I said, it's to me that's ownership, and I think ownership should be the ones who get the praise for that.
Two more things for me, Colby, and we'll wrap it up here. Is first off, when did you decide you wanted to get into broadcasting at your career? And two, Lafreniere 100-point season or what?
Oh, man. You know what? Let's just start with that one. I know I'm talking to sensible people, and I'll tell you, anybody who's not a Rangers fan sees that and, just thinks, oh, wow, who's this homer? I mean, listen, Alexis Lafreniere, let's just remind ourselves this. This is a guy who, for the first time in 4 years, looks like a top six NHL forward. Okay, he does. He looks like a top six NHL forward, but after 4 years. And so I'm not going to go ahead and put a guy in the Hall of Fame in his first good season in the NHL. I mean, I think 24 months ago, people were wondering if Lafreniere was going to play in the NHL for more than his rookie contract. Honestly, I mean, right. He looked extremely pedestrian. He was, not doing anything for the bottom lines, not good enough for the top lines. So when he's having his first good season, he's on pace for, 40-something points. He's got, 15 goals. When Johnny sits here and tells me that, this is a guy who's going to score 100 points, and, you look at Matt Barzal, who's gotten, 85 and then never gotten close. You look at Steven Stamkos, who played 16 years in the NHL and had 100-point season. You look at Braden Point, who's never had one. You look at Mitch Marner, who's never had one. And, I mean, these are all players who are in the All-Star game every single year versus a guy who, again, he finally looks like he fits in the top six, but he can't even crack the top power play unit on his team. Look, I think if Lafreniere ends up being a 30-30 guy, is he ever going to have the touch to score 30 goals? I'm not really sure. I've yet to see something that tells me he does. Could he be a guy who gets 50 assists? He might be able to. He might. And so, look, 50 assists, 25 goals, that's a really nice career for a guy to put up 70, 75 points a season. Those guys make, $8 million a year. you could do really well for yourself. But when you start looking at all the elite level players that played in the NHL that were not 100-point scorers, and then, my co-host says that and then wants to continue to talk about it. I mean, imagine you're celebrating a guy's 16th goal of the season in almost game 60. Like, that just tells you how low the bar has been set. I mean, like, I don't use the word elite for that type of situation. Artemi Panarin is an elite player. He's been in the league 9 seasons. He's never reached 100 points. Never reached.
I'm just glad you're setting the record straight here.
It's something that we're going to continue to argue about on our show. Tomorrow we have Bruce Boudreau coming on our show, and I promise you I plan to ask him that exact question if he thinks this player is showing that he is a potential 100-point scorer. Don't you worry, that will be a question that I ask Bruce Boudreau tomorrow. God, I'm like laughing. I don't even remember the other part of the question now because I'm just, and hey, listen, Johnny is beloved on Twitter. His New York Rangers fans back him up, which I love. I think that's sports fans. While they're nuts, they're important. They're passionate. They stick up for their players. It's the kind of situation where they could rip on this guy left and right. But the minute somebody from the outside does it, they all come to his defense. It's like when you can beat up your own little brother, but nobody else can type of situation. So it's craziness. It's insane. He even tried to argue with me that Braden Point is a better player on the rush than him. Lafreniere is a better player on the rush than Braden Point. And I'm like, Johnny, the rush. What about the rest of hockey? One guy had 65 points. One guy has 35. I'll take the guy with 65 points, who's a point-a-game player with 2 Stanley Cups. I mean, come on. A 50-goal scorer. It's like, he's just he's a homer when it comes to the Rangers. He can't think straight. That's all.
Until he calls them the Rags. But yes, it's simple math. Colby, I'm with you 100%. Appreciate you clearing that up. But and also thank you for all your time. We had a great time, and I hope to have you on again.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good night, and sorry about the cameo from Oliver. He, like I said, it's not the first time he's done that. He tries to get on my show every morning, and trust me, right now he's hanging out right here with me on the couch, trying to do everything he can to get my attention. So that's a day in the life for Oliver.
Love it.
I appreciate it, Colby. Thank you.
Have a great night.
All right, guys. See you later.
All right, folks. That was Colby Cohen of ESPN and Morning Cup of Hockey, Daily Faceoff. He's all over the place, doing a good job. And I don't know if your boy Johnny Lazarus was watching, but definitely set the record straight there.
Yeah, I mean, it's common sense.
The numbers don't lie.
Let's move on to Islander stuff.
Well, we're going to. But first, I got to tell everybody about Main Street Board Game Cafe in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play, food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, Lorcana, and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd. Unplug your game. And now we're going to take a break. So, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. We'll be right back.
time for What's on Tap, brought to you by A1 VIP Entertainment.
That's right, folks. It's time to take a look at what the Islanders have coming up, because after a rough week last week, they got a win-win-win, and it all starts tomorrow as they go to Dallas for an 8 p.m. Eastern start against the Stars, who are atop the Central Division right now. Although 5-3-2 in their last 10, not exactly world beaters, so but still a top team in this league, a team that the Islanders are going to have to come out on fire to begin with. As we talked about before, they've been coming out a little slow. So what do you see in the Dallas Stars, Stefen, and do the Islanders have a shot?
They always have a shot. They beat Dallas. They beat Dallas.
They did. That's
first
right.
game, and it's probably one of their worst games.
Can they sweep the series?
We'll find out. But yeah, clearly the Stars are a very talented team. They probably don't get enough credit for how good they are. And Jake Ottinger is an absolute stud in goal. And we've talked so much about the same stuff with this. Elite goaltending, you got to get traffic in front. You got to bear down. Can't take penalties. Cannot take penalties. And for the Islanders, they could be as urgent as possible. But when you're playing these elite teams, it doesn't really matter. Once they allow Dallas to get to their game, especially at home in their building, it's very tough to beat. But yeah, Dallas is, it's going to be a challenge. Even if the Islanders are at their best, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, this whole week, because then Thursday they go into Detroit, who, as I stated before, they're riding a 4-game winning streak. What's the update there, Jake? Is it a 5-game winning streak?
Well, it went to overtime. Can you guys take a wild guess who scored the overtime?
Patrick Kane overtime winner?
That he did.
Which means, wait, everybody clap it up. Jake Rodanis won money.
Is that right? Congratulations, buddy.
You have to bet on
Way to go.
Way to go. Goal-scoring parlay. That is hard to do.
It is hard
and he hit all 3.
Look at you, pal.
Yeah.
Look at you. I might have to ask you for some tips. I'm not in the betting game.
Hey, I don't hit many bets, so don't.
All right, fair enough. All right, so there you go. It looks like that's 5 now for the Detroit Red Wings, if math serves.
And the Islanders gap now.
Yeah, I think it was 8 points behind them going into today, so I think it's 10 now. Jake, if you want to verify that on your computer machine over there, we'll give you some time. But is that correct?
Now they're 10 points.
Yep.
10 points back to the Detroit Red Wings. They do have, I think, 3 games coming up against them, so it is potential ground they can make up. But listen, it starts on Thursday. Detroit looks like they might actually be for real. I was wondering if they were a pretender, but they brought Patrick Kane in, and this looks like a team who's ready to challenge for the playoffs, so this is going to be tough.
Yep, another team where they're playing as if their season depends on it, and they have a 10-point lead, so they're
must be nice.
But they're a good team.
Blue Jackets just beat the Rangers, by the way.
Okay.
Ended their 10-game winning streak.
Okay.
That's hysterical.
Right. Well, of course that's how it's going to go, right?
That's usually what happens is you beat the really good teams, you lose. All good things must come to an end if you want to call it good. But it doesn't really help the Islander situation.
No, it has no effect.
No, thanks.
Zero effect.
But
maybe on the draft situation.
But I love what's going on in Detroit for the sense of, like, Alex Lyon is a guy that really didn't get a lot of a shot to be a high caliber NHL goaltender. He backed up with Florida, and now he's playing like a legit goalie. Good for him. You love those storylines. But they bring in DeBrincat. I think when we had him on, we were on the show, we were talking about the trade that could have happened with the Islanders getting DeBrincat and how off to a hot start he was. He's been terrible, really, for most of the season in terms of goal production, and they're still where they are. And Patrick Kane's been unreal addition for that team. And you always, when's Yzerman's team actually going to start winning?
Right.
Here it is.
Looks like they've arrived. And then moving on to Saturday, the Boston Bruins come to town for an evening tilt on Saturday. So maybe that'll help favor the New York Islanders. But it is the Boston Bruins, after all, top of the Atlantic Division. But, funny enough, they have been blowing leads lately themselves. 3-3-4 in their last 10. So perhaps beatable, but a lot can happen between now and Saturday.
You could blow those leads when you're first place in the Atlantic.
Probably not lamenting those points as much as the Islanders.
We'll see if this is a hockey god move here. Is this game was actually supposed to be a day game that was changed just to a night game. I don't know what the reason was when they announced there was a schedule update.
Okay,
this game got moved to the night. So maybe the hockey gods thought we cannot give the Islanders another day game.
Perhaps a little mercy.
Mercy.
Indeed. Yeah. All right. Well, that's what's on tap for the Islanders. 3 tough games, and let's face it, you go 1-2 last week, and they got a. We were saying 2 out of 3 would have been all right last week, and now they're pretty much in a do or die situation. You're falling 10 points behind the Wings. I know that they have at least 3 games in hand on Tampa still, so maybe there's something there. Maybe they have one game left against
there's
those
a
guys.
chance.
It's a slim one, and I'm sure we're going to get into that stuff when we get to Questions Brewing, but another tough week for the Islanders, and it literally is do or die. But I'm going to tell you guys what else is on tap. A1 VIP Entertainment featured events start with Friday, March 22nd, Fall Out Boy at MSG, and Saturday, March 30th, and Sunday, March 31st, Zach Bryan at UBS Arena. And folks, baseball season is around the corner, and A1 VIP Entertainment can get you 50% off for select Yankee games this season. Call 516-787-0048. Mention Hockey Night in New York for 10% off those featured events. And, of course, these Yankee games. One call does it all.
Juan Soto to the moon. He's going to have a great year.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, God. Baseball, man. Yankees.
He had a home run today.
I don't know that
we
person.
We have Rodonis, Red Sox Rodonis over here.
How did that happen, Jake? Grab the mic. How did that happen?
Thank you. All right, turn his mic off. Mute it.
He's muted. You have to shout.
How did the Boston
real
thing
quick?
Happen? Look,
real quick.
We have so much time.
I love the city of Boston. Have you guys been there?
Yeah, sure.
No,
it's a great city.
No,
it's a great city. Okay,
sure.
I'm also a Mets fan, and I happen to not like the Yankees. So
it's
Boston
like that.
Oh, so you're a Yankee
So
hater.
it's more of an anti-Yankee situation.
Call it what you want, but
I'm done. Mute it.
Let's go Red Sox.
Ed, mute it.
I mean, I don't care, but you might have a throwdown with Ed after the show.
We have
Boston.
Forget that. We have lines to discuss. I think that's very important if we have time.
We do. I have a feeling somebody's going to ask us in Questions Brewing. Even if they don't, I'll ask you about the lines. How about that? It'll be a question.
Can we do cap real quick or no?
All right. Go ahead, Stefen. For crying out loud.
So the Islanders on cap friendly are over the salary cap.
Is that a fact?
That is a fact.
Do we know this?
Yeah, they are over the cap as of now. So Kyle McLean.
So are they going to get removed from the league now? Is that how that works?
Yeah, I think they take the team out back.
What's
the
consequences?
Yeah, we looked it up. It's like jail time, things like that. It's crazy.
Great.
But they're over the cap because they called Kyle McLean up. Scott Mayfield is not traveling with the team, but is not on LTIR.
Okay.
Hudson Fashion's on LTIR, but can't be recalled.
Okay.
Oliver Wahlstrom's out of the lineup, but they didn't waive him today.
Okay.
So we don't know what is going on. The team says that they are under the cap, but all the signs say they're not. So, again, I'm not saying anything is going to be done, but could we see a trade happen? A waiver move already have happened that they didn't announce yet. So definitely something to keep in mind by tomorrow at 2. Like I'm not saying this is happening, but if 2 o'clock comes and says Wahlstrom cleared or just something like that, that would be why. Because again, maybe there's some move that was made that we don't know about that they're not announcing, but definitely keep an eye on the Islanders over the next 24 hours.
Or did Cap Friendly perhaps make a calculation error? Is that possible?
No, I mean, it's 99% accurate, but doing the math on a calculator, and I can't do it freehand.
Sure.
They're over the cap, but I'm not a mathematician.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on it and
Questions
see if there's no, we're not in Questions Brewing yet. For crying out loud, Stefan. I'm the guy with the cards here, right?
Heroes, right? Heroes.
All right, so with that, Ed, why don't you throw us into Hero of the Week? Ladies and gentlemen, when you hear this song, that means it's time for the Hero of the Week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli and Bagels half-price hero, which this week is the Blue Liner, featuring chicken cutlet, bacon, melted American, Russian dressing on a toasted garlic hero. It sounds wonderful. What do you mean it sounds wonderful? It is wonderful. I've had it before many times. It's so good. So, Stefan, who is your Hero of the Week?
I hope you did this on purpose. Speaking of Russian, did you do this on purpose?
Maybe.
Alexander Romanov is my Hero of the Week because no matter if the Islanders keep failing, it seems like he's giving it his all every shift, laying the body, these big hits, big blocks. Last night, I think he stuck the leg out to stop a Kucherov one-timer into wide open cage. Obviously didn't help the Islanders in the long run, but I just think he's been one of those players, and now he's playing with Pulak instead of Dobson, and I just think he's been really good the entire year. The growth he's taken, he's been fantastic, and I thought this week, especially when the losing was happening, he was doing everything he can to change the course and tilt the ice in the Islanders' favor.
Okay, well, I also went with a blue liner, Stefan.
Oh, not a Russian?
No, he's not Russian. No. He would use, I think, Canadian dressing, if there's such a thing.
Yes, there's not. But
Right. So anyway, my Hero of the Week, I kept it simple. The one guy who scored a game-winning goal for the New York Islanders this week. Yes, the sniper, number 3, Adam Pelech, the unexpected overtime game-winning goal against the Pittsburgh. Yeah, not only did he get the goal, but let's see a little bit more of that. Right, he steps inside the blue line, rips a shot, and the Islanders were able to celebrate and not suffer another collapse after giving up a multi-goal lead. So, and then, as you said before, maybe this gave the team a little bit of hope, but the rest of the week obviously didn't do that great. But Adam Pelech, overtime game-winning goal, Hero of the Week. So Romanov and Pelech, your blue liner Heroes of the Week. So remember, folks, stop on in to the Blue Line Deli and Bagels Huntington location. Mention Hockey Night in New York and get half off the blue liner. So with that, I think we're going to throw it over to the Snake Den. Jake the Snake, what's the take? What do you got?
The theme song.
Oh, hit the theme song, pal. Let's go.
You just went straight to Jake.
To the Snake Den with Jake the Snake Redonis.
Yeah, so a little behind the scenes is sometimes I can't come up with these takes myself, or I need a little bit of help,
Sure.
So Sean or
assistance.
Stefen, they'll help me out.
Sure.
I went to Twitter, our buddy, Pizza Sports Guy, asked him, what do you want my take to be about? And gave me a couple things. So how do I think the Isles should take on the deadline? And I know this has been a talk a lot recently, and a few shows ago I even talked about some potential trade targets.
That's right, you did.
But I think my view has changed here. I honestly think they shouldn't do anything at the deadline.
Okay,
I'd like to see how it pans out for this group.
Okay.
So we could use this time as Watt to evaluate the players, who he wants to stay there, as you guys have previously mentioned. I would be okay, though, if they do buy, and the only person I'd be okay with them buying is Anthony Duclair.
Okay.
That's it.
Someone read my article.
Stefen, do you know the date of the trade deadline?
March 8th, 3 p.m.
Good to know you're doing your job.
That is a Thursday.
March 8th. That's not far away.
It might not be a Thursday. I think it's at the end of the week.
You have
People
the date
enjoy
and the
that
time.
day.
That's enough.
Yeah, March
That's
8th,
enough.
because my birthday is the 6th.
Oh,
there we go.
Look at that.
Maybe they'll
Big
give you a
birthday
present.
coming up.
Yeah, Lou give me a birthday present. You're
22,
fired.
Stefan?
22.
A nice article to write about.
Yeah, I know. 26 and off insurance.
Oh,
nah,
oh boy.
It'll be good.
All right. All right.
He had also asked
Oh, right.
about Colby's take on the laugh situation.
We got
Johnny.
that.
We got that. But he also asked me, why has Stefen still not shown up at the pizzeria? And when will you and Sean be stopping by?
Well, can I chime in here real quick?
Yes, you can.
Because, I mean, it's a fair question and would love to. Pizza guy. Still don't even know this person's name. Does he even have a face? Because his Twitter handle is just literally a slice of pizza.
I think it's Sauces. That's his name.
Sauces.
Hashtag Sauces.
Michael, would love to, but the question is, where the hell is his pizza shop?
Hey, me
Can't
too.
go unless we know where it is.
I'm a pizza fan. I would love to try
pizza.
the spot.
And those pictures that he's putting up all the time, whether it's the pizza, the pasta, looks wonderful. So
delicious.
Yeah, we can arrange a group trip here, Hockey Night in New York.
All right, we're going next week.
We got to know where it is.
Fine, we're going next
Yes.
week.
Where's the spot?
I think he texted me it. I have to look it up.
Yep. Group trip.
Okay.
Yeah, group trip.
There
All
we
right,
go.
so we're all in.
We'll knock that out.
Maybe
yeah.
we'll bring Jay too. Maybe I think he
Maybe.
likes pizza.
If Jay
Is
earns
this place in
He looks-
Boston
he
or
looks
is it,
stoked.
No, it's
is
in
it New
Boston.
York?
no
That's a fair
comment. No
question.
comment, Ed. No comment.
I think it's on the island. Yeah, I don't think I don't think we're traveling over county lines.
No, I don't think so. I will actually be, but
That's
Yes.
right. But
Just
I mean,
want to
you're
know where
Jake,
all
so.
these great places are. Yeah, they're not in Boston.
Okay. All right. So
we'll talk later, Ed.
we'll
Yeah,
talk later. So that's Jake's takes.
Muted.
Great job. Love the new theme song. Fantastic stuff. And now I'm going to tell you all about Isles Fix. Islanders Country. Get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the only Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at islesfix.substack.com. And now,
Can I say it?
yes.
It's time for Questions Brewing.
Nice job.
Thank you.
It's time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead, ask us a question.
Okay, now's the part of the show where I ask Ed and Jay how they're doing, how the chat's going, and if we have any questions.
Yeah,
so in that order, please.
Doing great. Sean got me a new hat.
Hey, let's go.
It's from the Stadium Series. It's got the patch and everything. Looks really nice.
There you go.
Jay is aloof.
Rolling
one
his
might
eyes
say.
as always.
It's a big word. Small word, but big word.
Yeah, but we have questions. Starting off,
they're
with-
brewing.
This one made me chuckle as soon as I started reading it. So Tragier19 asks, I've been watching hockey for 100 years.
Ooh.
And I never saw a team so bad at clearing their own zone when they have a chance. Why does this happen?
I'm pretty sure the 1925 team was really bad.
Well, he was around, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
they didn't exist.
Why is this team? I don't think they're that bad. I mean, they've clearly struggled at times to.
They have a problem.
They have many
have a problem.
problems.
Well,
but
with regard
it's
to
not
that, they
the
have a
Sharks.
problem.
It's not the Ducks. It's not.
Well, I'm talking about clearing pucks. They have a problem.
Oh, yeah,
That is
they
a
do.
clear problem.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. We've talked about it numerous times on how on earth that just happens. A team again, if the team was never like that under Trotz, and this was never an issue like, oh, they're that good at this. They were the best team in the NHL at this.
Right. Right.
So it's a great question. What happened? I said it last week. I'm going to crack the joke until I turn 100. that they need a 30 for 30 on this.
Yeah, but I think it's a combination of what Brian Compton mentioned last week about just maybe a lack of speed. Maybe the age is getting to them a bit, and they're not as quick to pucks as they used to be. I mean, they're not winning the board battles like they used to. And I think it's also just a mental thing too. I mean, how many, now you think about the mistakes that now, when you pile them up and you realize just how many have happened and what it's cost them when we talk about even just poor plays like passing out of the zone, whatever it is, the giveaways that have led to goals against, but even situations where they're hemmed in sometimes for literally a full 2 minutes on a PK or, late in the game when the goalie's pulled. I mean, again, this is a testament to why they haven't scored an empty net goal yet, is because they can barely get the puck past their own blue line. And it is mind-boggling. And I don't understand it. I don't see how all of these guys collectively could have forgotten how to clear a puck successfully out of a zone, right? But it's, you get this deep into a season and it's more than just coincidence. There's something going on with these guys. And for me, I think it's more mental than coaching. I think it's probably a combination of mental and physical, but clearly they can't get it done. And I'm sure, Patrick Roy's losing sleep at night now where he's been with the team long enough and he sees this happening. He's like, what the hell is going on here?
When in doubt, boards and out. When in doubt, flip it out. It sounds simple.
It's simple.
It's much harder.
But somehow it always ends up on the opponent's stick.
Well, you look at the Blues game, 3 goals in 32 seconds, and after the game, Anders was asked about this, Ryan Pulak was asked about this, and Patrick Roy, is this a mental thing? And I'm pretty sure Ryan maybe said it was a little bit mental. Anders Lee didn't like the question and said no, and Roy said no, it's just about turnovers. But again, why are they making these turnovers? These are turnovers they never made.
Right.
Yeah, next.
Okay.
Moving on.
All right, next up from Mike 4652. Knowing Lou and his loyalty, if Lou does the unthinkable and thinks about moving Brock, what is a realistic return to expect?
Oh, they would get so much. No, it'd be
he'd bring a haul.
Yeah,
he would.
I mean, again, the one thing that goes against Brock is his age, and the fact that he's going to need a new contract at some point. And when a player's, again, 35 goals probably for a third straight year. But does another team want to bring him on just for a rental move? Not again for maybe a year and a half or whatever, 2 years. Like, how much can you pay a guy after? Like, eventually he's going to fall off. So when he's due for a new contract for the Islanders, I mean, Brock could literally go to Lou or wherever the GM and say, "Listen, I've scored 30. I'm a top 10 center production-wise in the league. I only paid like that." And then GM could say, "Yeah, but you're 33." Or it's tough. So I think if the Islanders were going to go that route, which I don't think they would, I would think you'd bring back couple of firsts and a prospect, a first and 2 prospects. They'd bring back. He has the most value on the trade market for any Islander right
without a doubt. And if they were going to blow this thing up, he would be the first guy you probably deal for that reason, for the haul that he can bring back. But the problem is this team is not looking to blow things up.
They can't.
They're committed to a number of guys long term. And sure, could they try to unload them here, there, and everywhere? They could, but we just know that that's not the game plan, especially under Lou. And we've alluded to the fact that maybe this is Lou's last season if they don't make the playoffs. We don't know that, but just looking at it realistically right now, this is a team that's more than likely leaning towards, if anything, retooling, trying to shuffle out some cap room to bring maybe some younger, faster guys in if they can, right? And I just don't think Brock is going to be part of that for a few reasons. A, because of, again, just retooling, but also if they're still going to try to be competitive, who's their second line center after that, right?
Well, like us to another point today. He's no longer your second line center, but
what I'm saying is, like, you can't split up Horvat and Barzal.
No.
Because then you're wondering what wingers are going to fill those spaces, right? So you kind of have to, if you're going to, try to retool, if everything falls apart, they don't make the playoffs this season, which is where it's trending right now. Yep. If that happens, then, you're going to look at what you can get rid of and what you can maybe supplement with. And I think more realistically, you look at guys like Pajot. I don't think Pajot has done Lou any favors this year with just the numbers he's put up. I think he was much more attractive leading into the season, where we heard rumblings of maybe he was involved in a DeBrincat rumor, whether that was true or not, coupling him with Oliver Wahlstrom. I think it's going to be either harder to deal Pajot, or at least you're not getting much back, and really you're just getting cap relief at this point.
And you have to probably retain salary too.
Quite possibly.
Contract, so.
But I think that's something you look more in that direction of a guy like him. If you're looking to get rid of even more than that, I guess Palmieri's a guy, because he's still a guy who can help a team on a playoff run. I think that's something that you can. You're not just giving away. You'll get something back. You probably won't have to retain salary. You may not, or you might at least get something a little bit coming the other way. But the big thing for this team is, if they are going to do a retool, is to just get rid of money. They got to get rid of money somehow, and I think Pajot is probably at the top of that list if Lou can figure out a way to do it. And the next step is finding out how to do that.
But you made a great point. Like, if they're thinking about trading Brock Nelson, you trade Nelson, Palmieri, that's
right.
You blow the entire operation up. Which
I don't think that's going to happen.
They can't do that because of the long-term contracts.
Right.
Well, staying on the topic of Brock Nelson, Mr. Tom Boyle wants to know: are the Nelson rumors nonsense at this time?
Well, the one Nelson rumor I heard was that the Islanders are getting calls on Nelson. Lou's not looking to deal Nelson, but if a deal comes his way that he can't refuse, he should probably take it. I mean, I haven't heard that, but it makes a lot of sense. Teams should be calling about Brock Nelson, because if the Islanders are thinking about blowing it up, any playoff team that could get a number 2 or number 1 center, or even maybe make it even deeper, that Nelson becomes your third line center, or he could play wing now. Obviously, we know he could play wing. Teams should be calling. Lou, again, should only be willing to sell if the offer is not even a home run, grand slam. And 3, but I don't think he's going to do that. But those rumors, I don't think that they're definitely not shopped. I don't see a rumor that says the Islanders are shopping him, because I don't think they are.
I don't think Scott Malkin has any interest in going through a rebuild right now. They just opened that building. I've said things like this before. Like, I think they would rather try to fix this thing on the fly than blow everything up. I think you got to get deeper into the Barzal and Horvat contracts, stuff like that. And then you have upcoming long-term deals likely for Dobson and Romanov. So they're pretty much buying into this core. And is it easy? No, but they're probably going to have to change on the fly.
The core is really good.
Yeah, I mean, look. You have Sorokin, you have Pelech Pulick. They're getting a little older, but they're still there. You have Barzal, you have Horvat. I mean, they have a lot of pieces that you can absolutely retool around. It's just having Lamoriello or whomever it is to figure out the science to retool, the right team around them. And I think we're really close to hitting that point. And I think that will be this summer if they don't make the playoffs. But I do think, as long as they see their own math there as a path to get into the playoffs, they're still going to try to make it, and they might still try to add somebody. They might, but it may mean still subtracting someone just to make financial room for that person. But I don't think there's going to be any massive overhaul of this team. When you have a goalie like Sorokin and the names I just put out there, this is a team, for better or worse, that is probably going to spend the next 2 to 4 years, off the top of my head, trying to win that Stanley Cup.
Next up from the Wheel, 89. Can either of you go back in time and tell us Isle fans that Uncle Leo on the top of the line was undoubtedly the key to our back-to-back playoff runs and success?
We can't. No, we don't have time machines. Sorry.
No?
I don't have one. Do you have one?
I do have an appreciation for the question, though. It is funny how that stuff works out, right? Top line Leo, and they're in the conference finals. Go figure.
It is absurd. And guess what? It's a guy that goes into corners, win battles, plays strong defensively. I mean, people thought it was crazy, but if you look at the dynamic of that line back then, it made that line did not allow goals. And they but obviously Komarov's not a top line player. Great guy, though.
No, he's not.
Great guy, though.
Very, very funny dude.
Next up from CGS 878. How much money would Eberle need to sign with the Islanders for next season?
Well, it's not even how much money would Eberle need. I think the Islanders have to have enough cap space to sign anybody.
Right. He probably takes a pay cut given his age.
Yeah, it depends how much he likes. No joke, wants to be back with the Islanders. I mean, him and Barzal are pretty close, but
he seemed to enjoy his time here.
Yeah.
Like being here. Is that something you want to retread, though? I don't know.
Probably not.
Right.
Again, it depends now. If Nelson's going to be on that top line with Horvat and Barzal, and they're not trading Nelson, you don't have to worry about that line. And your second line right now is Lee, Pajot, Palmieri. We know Lee's not going anywhere. We know Pajot, unless they trade him, he's under contract, and Palmieri's under contract. So, Eberle, you'd probably want to try to upgrade your top six. I don't think Eberle would come back here. I don't think that would work. And again, the Islanders have zero cap space to do anything they want to do right now. So I don't think it's about what Eberle really wants. I think it's about what can the Islanders even offer.
There you go.
Next up from OKD-Man. If and when the time for Lou to go comes, do you think we would see Wah step into the GM role, or do we find a new face for the front office.
Yes.
We teased that. That was a Orc.
Oh, we did talk about that last week.
We did touch on that last week, where we think that it's a possibility that Watt could be the guy who steps in. Stefen, it looks like you had something at the ready there.
Oh, I think there's, again, it depends how much. If Lou has a couple more, I don't think Watt's going to go from coaching this team and Lou being, like they'd probably bring in like an assistant guy to be a stopgap for Watt. I think at some point with the Islanders organization, Watt will be the GM and Benoit, his assistant coach, will be the head coach of this team at some point. I'm not saying, again, I don't think they're not going to build a team for Watt and his structure and system and then make him the GM after half a year. But I will say that I do think at some point it will be Watt, the GM, and Benoit as the head coach.
I have this feeling, too, that, and without any sort of information, but it just seems to me that Patrick Watt was brought into the Islanders organization to be part of the organization for a while.
Yep.
Now, whether that's his head coach for an extended amount of years or if and when Lou is ready to move on. Because you got to figure that's happening sometime soon. Like, I just cannot see Lou Lamoriello, and this has nothing to do with what he's done with the team. I just mean literally his age and how long he's been in the
jacked,
game.
Though. He's in great health.
I don't know if I see him being the GM of this team beyond 2 to 3 years, and I think that might even be overextending. Like this year, maybe next year, I don't know. And again, like I do have this feeling that if they don't make the playoffs this year, that might be when they sit down and say, okay, we gave it a go. We're going to pass the baton to Patrick Waugh. That's how I see it going eventually.
And even if Waugh is not the GM come next year or the year after, and Lou is still here, for a fact he will have a say in what Lou. Not again, Lou has the final call, but they're building the team for Waugh. So Waugh has to have a say. Like Colby said on the thing is, Waugh's going to tell what players I think aren't going to work here. Like, he's going to have a say in how Lou does it. At the end of the day, it's Lou's call, but he definitely didn't bring Waugh in there to just be the coach and just coach.
There you go.
Isle 72 asked, do you think that the Isles need to get a look at Ishikov no matter what?
No.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate on that? I have things to say too, but you go ahead.
I don't, again, size shouldn't define everything, but there's a reason why we didn't see him last year. Size, everything. But we didn't see him last year. And again, he was a rookie. And this year he was an all-star for the second straight year. And he's going to have the same problem with the Islanders that Wahlstrom had, where if he's going to make it, it's as a top 6 forward. And even if the Islanders are out of it, I mean, sure, could they call Ishikov up to show him off to trade? But that being said, could a call-up also make his value worse? One hit and Ishikov could show that he can't be in this league if he doesn't get up. So right now, his value, to me, I don't think it's ridiculously high, but I think keeping him in the AHL might be beneficial to his value if they're trying to include him in a trade, because if he comes up and his first game shows he cannot be an NHL player, like he can't win a puck battle, can't play any type of defense, everything he's done in the AHL to build up that value as a potential prospect is now gone. So I guess it's the thought of, I don't think he has the potential to be with the Islanders playing the same way Wahlstrom doesn't in a top 6 role. So sure, if he gets called up and scores a goal, yes, his value goes up. But at the same time, I think it might be too much of a risk given that the Islanders have not many assets and lack of prospects to call him up, see him fail, and then now he has no value.
Sure, and I think if and when the Islanders do determine that they're not making the playoffs, or they start selling guys off, whether that's maybe a Clutterbuck on a lower degree, Pajot, whoever it is, I think you should be calling these guys up at least. Call Ishikov up.
I agree with some of you guys.
Maggio, maybe even Dufour. Just see what these guys can do with some carefree NHL ice. Just see what they look like out there. It's not going to give you the best, note on how well they perform, because it's going to be games that don't matter.
Yeah.
But let's just see how they acclimate to the NHL game. So if the Islanders do fall short of the playoffs, I would love to see at least some of those guys come up just to see what they have.
Yeah, I really don't think we're ever going to get to that point, because I think the Islanders, again, one step forward, one step back. If they're 6, 7, 8 points, they're going to keep, unless it's like the last game of the season or 2 or 3 games left. I don't think the Islanders are going to be completely out of it, because they'll win some games to stay in the race and be relevant for the deadline and then all that kind of stuff.
I just feel like this last week or two has not instilled a lot of confidence. And I'm sure we'll have a question that'll relate to this, but and I'm sure a year ago we probably had a similar conversation.
And then Horvat arrived.
Yeah, and then things
Barzal
changed.
got hurt.
But for me, I currently don't have that feeling that all of a sudden this team is just going to get it. And they're just going to start rattling off wins. Can they? Are they capable? Absolutely. We've seen how they've gone up and down this year, without question. But with the way things have been going recently and some just crushing losses that you can, as you said, you've seen it in the locker room, how these guys just look defeated. And are they going to be able to rally around that room and pull something off here that we're not really expecting right now? I hope they do, but it just doesn't look that way to me.
Want to hear a fun fact? And this is
love those. I love fun.
5 on 5 since Wah has arrived. I don't know the exact stat, but Wah told us today, and I'm going to believe Wah. The Islanders have allowed they've had the most scoring chance in the league at 5 on 5.
I did not know that.
I didn't look it up. Like, I'm going to trust Wah. And I mean, he could be lying to me, and I believe it. Like, he can tell me my name's
okay.
He can tell me my name's Steven. I'd be like, yeah. Sure,
okay, yeah, sure.
But yeah, crazy. Anyway.
Okay.
Next up, DTMR 0729. Not a big bring back former Isles guy, but thoughts on trading for Tito. Fast, younger French Canadian. 1 year left on the deal. Might get him for cheap.
And what's up, DTMR? Met you in the concourse the other day. Pleasure to meet you.
I'm sorry they had to meet Sean at the concourse the other day. No,
you shut your mouth.
I'm pretty sure we have talked about this. And what I said about you can't bring Bo back. If it was during the year one, $4.12 million. If that's correct, I don't know how my memory just remembered that one. But I would bring him back because if the Islanders had cap space and needed extra forward and he was willing to take a 1/4 pay cut and make around $1 million as a prove-it deal, him and Barzal are best friends. Bestest of friends, and I think...
Bestest.
Is that a word?
Nope.
Anyway,
it's not an adjective. It's not a verb.
It's all right. Grammarly would have fixed that for me. But, yeah, they're so close that just to keep morale high. I mean, Bo obviously scored one of the greatest goals in Islanders history, especially for fans that weren't around for the dynasty at all, or maybe weren't even around for the Bates goal, things like that. The biggest goal in the history of their fandom.
Recent history.
He's meant so much to the organization when he was here, and just to Barzal, keep your clients happy, right? And I think that Barzal's here long term. They can get Bo here to be, fight for that extra forward spot, bring him on a PTO, or sign him to as your extra forward next year as an option. Sure, I don't think the Islanders will even have the cap space for funsies to have a guy. But I think just because him and Barzal are so close, if there was even room for a 1 year, $1 million deal, why not? I don't think he's going to be a player that could help this team really.
I guess I wouldn't hate him on a 1 year, $1 million deal in a middle six role, I suppose, where you're
extra
not.
Forward.
Yeah, if you're not paying him 4.12 to score 20 to 30 goals, yeah, that's probably a problem. But look, he's younger. He's got some foot speed. Would it be the worst thing in the world? No, but you just don't see those retreads too often. I know they did it years ago. That was a long circle before he came back.
Some of those careers ended.
Well, I remember they did it with Mariusz Czerkowski before your time, but they traded him for Aaron Asham, and they ended up bringing him back. I think they signed him as a free agent, whatever it was. But you just don't see it.
What about Radek Martinek?
He was a very special case. He found his way back. He's still on the island. He's still skating around Syosset, I'm sure, at Iceworks, but probably Northwell now. But
wait till they bring Josh Bailey back this summer. That's the next one.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
Maybe as a coach, the player development.
Yeah, maybe. All right, Ed, what do you got?
Next up from NZab09. For all the Isles fans who say blow up the team and start over, who was the last team who did this and was successful, and how long did it take them?
Look at the New York Rangers. Look at
the New York Rangers. The letter. That was the letter, remember? They sent the letter. And it was
Gordon and John Davidson at the time. That's right.
Probably one of the best quick rebuilds we've seen.
Do we call that quick, though? I mean, it wasn't overnight.
I mean, they weren't it was, we got rid of the players you don't want to have, and 2 seasons later, they were back in the playoffs. But again, when you talk about a full-on rebuild where, you sell everybody, you can't do it in the cap world anymore.
It takes time.
Yeah.
It takes a long time. I mean, that would be a long waiting game. And I'm just going to go back to what I said before. I don't think this team is even at that point. I think we're not going to see a committed rebuild for a long time.
And you said it starts with Nelson. If you're talking about a retool with Nelson being moved and things like that, excuse me, Ilya Sorokin would have to go first. He's going to ruin your rebuild because he's going to win you games that you don't want to win.
Right. You're going to end up with the 12th pick instead of, the 3rd pick or whatever it is. Ed?
We lost some of our questions, unfortunately, in the chat. Some of them were disappearing.
We have a software issue.
A bit of a software issue, but we do have one from Coach Jeff 24 here.
Okay.
How rock bottom do things need to get for ownership to move on from Lou? Is it really death do us part with him?
Oh, jeez. I don't think it's death. That's a little messed up there, but
it was a figure of speech. I know you don't do well with those, Stefen.
I know, but we're talking about a guy that's 81. That was messed up.
Wow, that was
anyway. Yeah, rock bottom. I think missing the playoffs, like you said, is going to have a sit down. And I think it depends how much they miss by. It depends if Lou makes a move and gives up assets, and the guy comes back and is terrible. Like if he mishandles his assets and trades the first for a player, and they don't make the playoffs, and the guy doesn't re-sign.
Yeah,
like that's serious. I mean, in jobs, when you don't succeed in your job, you get fired. And I don't think we'll ever see a firing. It'll be a mutually parting ways. But again, same thing with Lane is. You could fire Lou, but if you're not putting Wah in that spot, you kind of have to have if you're going to fire Lou, you got to have a replacement ready to go. It can't be we're firing Lou and then we're going to go on the prowl for a GM.
I think that the hiring of Patrick Wah, I think there was just more long-term parts of that discussion.
Agreed.
This wasn't just an immediate, all right, we'll bring Patrick in and see what happens. I think there's going to be something there, whether that means Lou hanging on for a little longer or there's some sort of passing the baton, but I think that, we're just going to have to wait and see. But I have a feeling that part of that conversation, some way, shape, or form, was the New York Islanders post Lou Lamoriello.
Yep.
Whether that's sooner or later.
And we spoke about it too, is I don't think Lou made the decision to hire Wah on his own. I think management.
I agree.
I don't think Malkin would have allowed him to hire Wah unless there was a plan.
I agree.
Tom Boyle chimed in and asked, does Bolduc need waivers to go to Bridgeport, and was he injured or sick to warrant a conditional stint?
So this is the way you get away from waivers, and he was not waiver exempt. So if the Islanders wanted to send him down, he'd have to go through waivers. Conditioning stint, he counts against the roster spot, and he counts against the cap. And it doesn't have to be injury. They just have to give a reason to the commissioner's office as to why. First off, Bolduc has to agree to go on the conditioning stint. Now, they said it was to get his confidence up. I doubt that flies as a way to get a player out of waivers, is because then every team would use it. So we don't know what was said to Bettman to convince him. We don't know anything like that. But Bolduc had to agree. He doesn't need waivers. The max he gets down there is 14 days. He played last night. He's probably playing. He probably played today. They have a game Wednesday night, I believe, as well. So he's going to get games and to stay fresh. It's a great move. I don't know what the reason is, but it had to be a good one because then every team would use that. Oh, just needs confidence. Let's avoid waivers.
Lou finds ways.
Yep.
Just like he's apparently over the cap. Look at that.
What a league.
What do you got, Ed?
And this just in from Stephen Butch 9. What's your guys' overall prediction at this moment for what Lou does at the deadline?
Again, cap space is an issue. I think if he can move on from a guy like Peugeot, I think he does it. If not, I think you do see Oliver Wahlstrom moved, especially with the roster changes they just made where, Wahlstrom is not in the lineup anymore. They said Lou and Wah both said we're going to give him a good look. We're going to take our time with him. And that's done. Essentially now. You're playing McLean to have Nelson as your left winger on that top line. So, today I asked Wah, what did you see from Wahlstrom? You guys said you're going to give him a good look. What are you going to do? And he said it wasn't that he was playing bad. I do want to see more consistency, but we wanted another center in there because Nelson's now a winger. If that's the plan going forward, the Islanders need to go get a center unless they trust McLean. Like now the things shift now to if you truly believe Nelson's going to be on this team next year and you want him on your top line and that top line is dynamic, and you don't trust McLean, you need a center.
Just to first I'll start with the original question and then we can start with the line.
What's your overall prediction for what Lou does at the deadline?
Well, look, we got about 2 weeks until the deadline, right? About 2 weeks. And, look, they have to basically be nearly lights out over these 2 weeks to give Lou a reason to buy.
Yep.
Right? So I think they're going to do one of two things at this point, and that's either stand pat, like Jake the Snake over there said. How you doing, Jake? And or they will sell. I don't know how heavy they would sell. And also, you look back at what Lou did with Chara and Green, where he could have gotten something for those guys, but he elected to hang on to them out of respect, out of just saying, hey, you feel more comfortable here, fine. So I know fans probably don't want to hear this, but he may not trade a guy like Cal Clutterbuck if Cal's like, listen, my family's here, I don't want to go anywhere. And then Lou might say, you know what, I don't need that 3rd round, 4th round pick or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like he might just hang on to him. Maybe he doesn't go that way with a guy like Peugeot because you're talking money here. You're talking getting that off the cap. You're talking about maybe getting something back and opening up a roster spot. But I would say with what's transpired over the last week or two, he is either standing pat or selling. And if he buys, it's going to be a very conservative buy where he's not giving up a lot.
Or it's a move for that Wah said, hey, forget if we make the playoffs or not this year. I want this guy for next year.
Could do that too.
Pull a Bo Horvat move where let's get it. I don't think
You're looking towards the future.
They don't have the cap space, but any move that Lou's making for the deadline, he doesn't do rentals. So he's making a move to bring a player in. that's why I said Duclair, and we could touch on it before we wrap this thing up, but Duclair played 2 years under Watt in Quebec. Duclair brings speed. Watt keeps talking about speed.
Yep.
This is before Nelson got moved to the wing, but Duclair is fast. He could be a top 6 guy for this team. He's playing top line on San Jose, which doesn't mean a lot, but small cap hit. Probably do a 2-year deal at $2.5 million annually. It fits under pretty much everyone's cap. And just a player that knows Watt. Like, that would be, to me, a cheap ad that if it doesn't work, you could probably flip him at the draft. Speed is always an asset. But that's like a minor move they can make where Duclair has that speed and he knows Watt's system and structure, and I think that would help out.
And just to touch on the lineup thing real quick before we bounce out of here is I don't think the Nelson, Horvat, Barzal line is going to be a long-term thing for this team. I don't think that goes into next year. Maybe that's something Watt rides for the rest of this season, at least as long as they stay in the playoff chase. But I think that's more of, I'm going to give this a shot to see if they can put some goals in the damn net and pray that the balance of the rest of the lines doesn't completely fall off the tracks. So I don't necessarily think Nelson going to the wing on the top line means that Lou Lamoriello is shifting his focus to maybe a center because they will need another center. I ultimately think that Brock Nelson lands back in that second pivot spot, whether that's before this year is over or next year. I think this is more just, we need wins, we need points. Let's see if these guys can just dominate. Because look, it's a great line to put together. I love the fact that they're going to give it a shot. But I mean, you got to see if they can score some goals and then keep them out of the net on the other end of that. So that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, it's a good way to end it.
So that'll do it for Questions Brewing, and that'll do it for the show. Cue the music. So I want to send a big thanks to Colby Cohen for joining us here tonight. Great stuff from him. And, of course, want to send a big thanks to our wonderful sponsors, starting with Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington and 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip. Check out the menu and order online at BlueLineDeli.com. Also want to send a big thanks to Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at mainstboardgamecafe.com. And also a huge thanks to Razor and Kniff Attorneys at Law. Nobody likes going to court, but hey, if you have to, call 516-742-7600 for a free consultation. And want to send a big thanks to A1 VIP Entertainment, your one-stop entertainment concierge for sports, concerts, Broadway, and more. One call does it all at 516-787-0048. And remember, folks, if you dig what we're doing here, please rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your acquaintances, tell your coworkers, tell everybody about Hockey Night in New York. And Stefen Rosner, where can we find you on the internets?
Yes, on Twitter at Stefen_Rosner, STEFEN_Rosner, the Hockey News, Islanders, Rangers, and NHL.com.
Hockey News, Islanders, and Rangers. How's that Rangers get going for you, buddy?
It's good. It's more quick stories, behind the scenes helping out. It's been great.
Okay, cool. Well, you can follow myself at Shoney Hockey. You can follow the show at Hockey Night NY on all your social media platforms. What else we got? Oh, yes, the St. Patrick's Day viewing party. That will be March 17th. Islanders, Rangers matinee. Hopefully it's more than just for bragging rights between the Islanders and Rangers. But either way, 1 o'clock puck drop. We will have a show at 12 p.m. Mr. Michael Carver, you might know from the ILC podcast, will be my guest co-host. And the boys from Rangers Ed will be coming in to talk New York Rangers. Getting real close with those frenemies over there at Rangers Ed podcast.
You are, and then you're ratting on me for covering the Rags.
I guess that's true. I guess that's partially true.
Yeah, right?
Fair point to you. All right, folks, so with that out of the way, I want to say thank you so much once again for tuning in here. For Stefen, for Jake the Snake, for Ed, for Jay, I've been Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night in New York. We will see y'all next week.